And these are wells that have had significant high concentrations of helium, hydrogen and natural gas and actually flowed its surface and documented it. So we see a huge potential in Mt Winter, absolutely.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Georgina Energy CEO, Anthony Hamilton. Tony, very good to speak with you. You're out with the updates on both your projects this week. So starting with progress at Mt Winter, what's the current status of the Aboriginal Land Rights Act agreement process, and when do you expect it to be finalised?
Good morning, Stephen. Look, we had the two announcements go out in fairly quick succession, simply to keep the market updated as to where we're at. In the case of the ALRA, which is the Aboriginal Land Rights Agreement, we've actually been advised that there are virtually no objections to the content and the way the agreement's going. So we would expect that to happen shortly. Having said that, though, the CLC is very focused on the Mereenie production agreement, which is a pretty significant agreement in the Northern Territory, and it relates to a field that's not far from Mt Winter, that's been in production since, I think, the 60s from memory. So we're expecting that to occur, the agreement to occur fairly shortly.
Tony, how significant is the 38% increase in recoverable reserves at Mt Winter? What does it mean for future development?
The biggest thing about Mt Winter is it's not just the increase because of the reprocessed seismic and the evaluation that's been done. There are actually two other wells on the site, and they sit over some of the extension of that structure. So potentially it could be significant, could be very significant, but obviously until we actually re-enter the well and do the work, we will, you know, the old saying goes, if you want to know what it is, you've got to drill it. The other key issue for us is that obviously Mt Winter sits on the Amadeus Basin. The Amadeus Basin is quite famously got a number of very high yielding wells that were drilled back in the, I think, about 2014, thereabouts. So, and these are wells that have had significant high concentrations of helium, hydrogen and natural gas and actually flowed its surface and documented it. So we see a huge potential in Mt Winter, absolutely.
Well, turning to Hussar, where do things stand with the revised environmental management plan at Hussar, and how close are you to final drilling approval?
So with Hussar, like everything that we've been talking about, we lodged all of our paperwork, and it's been lodged over a long period of time. It's essentially, or everything we lodge gets reviewed by the regulators and the interested parties. And the interested parties could be the Central Land Council, they could be the traditional owners, they could even be the pastoralists. And then comments come back to now what's called DMPE, no longer DEMAs. And they will then write to us. And it's essentially a process you go through. Now, we got the last inquiry and we filed, as I said, I think on the other day, we filed our final response to all of their queries. So there is nothing else. We already have approval for the well management program. So essentially what that is the actual whole process and the engineering. This is literally a very small piece of the puzzle. As long as everything goes according to what we've answered everything according to what they want, then I would expect that we will get our permit pretty shortly.
Tony, once those permits and approvals are in hand, what are the next steps of both projects?
Well, essentially it's the re-entry of both. And then ultimately, as you know, with our entire concept is to sell the gas at the wellhead. And the beauty of that is that we have continued expressed interest. The model works in that we bring the gas to the wellhead, and then it's the responsibility of the off-taker to essentially separate the gas, clean it up. The scoping study that we completed, which said that the project was viable and the process upon which we were approaching it was viable. And also we had one other benefit. when the Seddon and Associates did the evaluation, they actually said to us that they would, the off-taker, when they bring these modular plants to site, would use the hydrogen to power the plant, which then means we can get a better price because we're selling natural gas and helium. So it's an all-encompassing process. And once we've got flow and it's flow tested, yeah, then it's full-scale production.
Well, Tony, I hope you'll continue to keep us updated with your progress. Thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
That's Anthony Hamilton, CEO of Georgina Energy.